Well, maybe that particular one. I mean, no.
Okay, but our
You
names
get what
in
you
there.
get. You go through it. All right.
Okay, but our names.
Wait, I was serious question.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just.
Okay, most people do because it's like.
No, I don't know.
If you want one.
No.
Wait, what do you want?
I can
No,
create a
Eric.
special test just for today.
No, thank you.
English.
All right. Back to business. Get back to. Get back to history, culture, stuff like that. Okay. History, culture, notes.
Wait, I'm dead.
And this is where class will continue. I want you to take, I'm not going to give you more than maybe like 1 minute. Just to think. We're going to brainstorm some stuff out. So far, you've read exactly 2 pieces of work by this author. A political speech, or parts of a political speech, and parts of a corporate speech. So, I want you to think, before we throw stuff up on the board, what things come to mind when you think of him as an author. You be very careful. I want you to focus right now only on style or language or word choice or grammar. I don't care about him as a politician. I don't care about him as an attorney. I don't care about him as an elected official. I don't care about him as a person. Focusing only on his writing style. So don't raise your hand, even just think about it. Out Jordan's right or wrong. Jordan, you know what wrong. So things that come to mind when you think about his writing. If you want to, we're sort of going to brainstorm. Okay, as you think back over his writing style, stuff of literary nature, what comes to mind? Reading. So, yes, periodic sentences. Definitely, yes.
I don't want to say manipulative, but like he has a way of like changing what you might think. I don't know another word.
I'm going to just push on that a little bit. Is that to you truly a linguistic, stylistic thing, or is that a content thing?
Well, you have to be like smart to be able to be persuasive.
Okay.
In your speech.
Okay.
Or writing.
So how do you want to say that?
Persuasive.
Persuasive. Okay. Sounds good. What else? What else goes through your mind, Patrick?
Uses chiasmus a lot.
Uses chiasmus a lot. Okay. Maybe a couple more things. Janae.
I'll put creative writing styles.
Okay, very creative. I'm going to push back on that a little bit more here. I want to hear some more on that. Yeah. Archaisms. Okay. A lot of these particular techniques. Janae, what do you mean by creative writing?
When we learned about like the tricolor, I mean, kind of creative, like how that like flows together.
Okay, okay, I see what you're
Yeah.
saying, yeah. The NAFRA, right? Again, all those big terms, you think of those things, NAFRA, Synditon, that kind of stuff, was that? Or polysyndeton? Right. Polysyndeton, all that kind of stuff. That's what you think of. And I'll say that you're basing that, you said, on what you have read so far. You have only read Horatius, only read the speeches. This guy was a prolific. Not necessarily, actually not necessarily. You could be a crappy hit prolific player. That's a term of, yeah. There you go. You wrote a lot of stuff. Prolific just means you wrote a lot of stuff. You got some people right good chums, and they write a lot of it. Hopefully you're writing good stuff. Judy Blume. You don't like Judy Blume stuff?
This was Reagan. I like Fudge. That's the only one I like.
Who wrote?
Oh, are you there, guys? Me, Margaret? It's like
No. Who wrote?
Margaret.
No, I'm thinking Beverly King. I was thinking, who wrote about Ralph the Motorcycle Mouse?
Oh,
I love
that.
that. Is that what you talked about?
That was
my
Beverly Clear.
favorite.
My
Yes.
house,
We're on these mice.
That was my favorite book.
There were a couple of them. There was- Yeah. All right. That's based on our ratio. Now, this guy was known for two other types of writing. Okay? He's known for writing either two words, epistolae or literae, which simply means letters. And from epistolae we get what English word means. Epistle, E-P-I-S-T-L-E, simply means a letter. And he also wrote
That's it, us.
philosophy. Now, what if any of this stuff that readily came to your mind in the writing style, based on orations, what if any of this would you expect to see in personal letters? Right. Okay, so maybe we might see these. I want to put question marks just because we haven't actually read any of his stuff yet, so we're guessing at this, but we might see persuasive. Yeah. You think might see trichola? He is a good orator. Think he might see trichola? Yep. You think, Gaia? Think would also be in personal letters, yeah. You think periodic sentences? Let me ask this. What kinds of things would you have in a personal letter? We're not talking content, but in terms of the style, we're not talking a text message, nothing as brief as that. But if you were to, it might be words in the form of an email or a handwritten, it doesn't matter, but some sort of informal note, some sort of informal written communication to a friend or a relative, longer than a text and just love you on a birthday card. What stylistic thing would you typically have in yours? Draw a line there because we're talking about you, so maybe more simple. And we'll put that as a question because we don't know about his, but that might be for yours. Yep.
I would definitely have the periodic sentences as well, just because like if you're writing a letter, you're generally going to tell the story.
So you might actually have periodic sentences also. We'll bring that back down underneath for you. That's interesting. Yes.
Pictures.
Pictures. You might actually have pictures in yours. Okay. Okay. Yep.
I wouldn't pay as much like attention to things like very repetition, so
say, well, we can actually go ahead and say that, not repetitious, so the, anaphora, tricolon kind of stuff, maybe not that for you, yes?
I would probably write more in a primitive sense.
A little bit more on the primitive, maybe shorter stuff there, okay, maybe one more, yep, Margaret?
I would be maybe.
You would see some persuasion, in yours, all right, we'll leave that there. What about philosophy? Now, I don't know if you've had occasion to read any philosophy in a history class, or if you take critical thinking, or stuff like that, in some of those classes, or maybe in a piece in a world history class, you might have had a little snippet here or there. As you think about that, though, what might you have stylistically, Patrick?
I was gonna say persuasion.
So maybe some persuasion in philosophy? Yep. Yep, Sheena. Certainly you got that in the speeches, we didn't name it earlier, but you got that maybe in the philosophy, Zoe?
Periodic sentence.
You think that might come back? Jake?
Allegories or, the input?
Allegories, and we'll say et cetera. So maybe other kinds of
Metaphors.
extended metaphors, examples, stuff like that. Was that?
Yeah, I was gonna say metaphors.
Okay, that similes, stuff like that, maybe. Well, here's the deal. You got no way of guaranteeing how people are going to remember you. You might want to control how people remember you, but you got no choice over that. If Cicero had had his choice, he would have had you remembering this. He wouldn't have even necessarily cared that you knew this. Now, that isn't how history is remembered. We remembered him actually very strongly in all three categories. But his personal desire, especially as he got older and got out of public life, he wanted to write philosophy. That's what it was. But history has come down and really focused on all factors. Do you get any written informal communication? I'm not talking about college essay and exams, stuff like that. But written informal communication that is substantially more than a text message. I think the answer is yes. But what informal writing, informal written communication do you engage in that would be substantially more than a text message, which is usually an abbreviated bit? Right.
A lot of my friends go to school camp, so
Okay.
I write letters.
Okay, you actually write letters to friends off to campus, so actually a written letter, okay? What else?
Emails.
Okay, emails, and again, emails are usually a little more substantial than just a text message, there's more going on. Yeah.
Like, if I text my boss, I don't like to be short.
Okay, now you just introduced a different thing there, it depends on the audience, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you're texting a friend, that's one thing. If you're texting your boss, if you're texting a parent, that might be a little bit different. Yeah.
I never, grandparents, I email, right?
Email or letter to grandparents, wouldn't text them, but again, would text other people, yeah. Okay, is any of that driven by what she is able to receive?
Yeah, she can't, yeah.
Like I say, there's some limitations on what she's able to receive. What's interesting, this letter writing was a huge deal until, gosh, I don't know, maybe part of the 1900s. So until less than 100 years ago, letter writing was a huge deal, and especially among historical figures. It's why presidents establish libraries when they're out of office. So every piece of paper that they've ever had to do with while they were in office gets cataloged, gets archived, and you can see personal little notes from President Kennedy to somebody. You can see formal state dinner invitations, pieces of legislation, all that gets put into the library. And we get really interested, especially in their personal letters. Yeah.
Well, you both have to be like the president speaking,
Okay.
or like some sources.
Yeah.
I found probably the writers.
And that's a great source, and especially during wartime. If you look at Civil War, Revolutionary War, World War I, World War II, a lot of personal letters become really a good primary source information for those periods. Yeah.
So, they're using, like we say, the personal letters as head of state provide better insight on what kind of person they were rather than how they appeared to people.
There you go. Now, take about another minute. And I do want to move on to Cicero. What's your opinion? What words come to mind based solely on the little that you know of him right now, which is again largely based off of parts of two speeches. Think about it. What's that? Okay, what comes to mind based on the little that you have read, parts of two speeches so far, when you think of Cicero the comrade, Cicero the person, intelligence. Yes. Divorced. Fair enough. Yeah, he was divorced. Yes. Cunning. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He comes up with an opinion and then he holds that.
And then he holds, okay, that does give a clarification, yeah. Yeah, Zoe.
Deceitful.
Deceiving.
Deceiving.
Sheena. Witty. What else? Yes. Manipulative. Anything else? Yes.
It might go.
Okay. Impressionable. What do you mean by that?
Like, he has a lot bigger.
Oh, okay. Now, the impression will mean that he receives impressions. So basically makes an impression. You're not going to forget that you've been in his
Yeah,
presence.
he will remember.
Makes an impression, yeah. Yeah. Political. Some of that is positive and some of that's negative and some of that's neutral. I would say almost all of this stuff is neutral. All creative might be positive, I suppose. Persuasive might be positive. This is definitely much more of a mixed bag of values, statements, judgments that you pass on based on his writing. So now back to Patrick's comment. There isn't one person in this room who really knows what President Obama is like. President Bush. Well, I met him. I mean, so there's a little bit there, but President, either the President Bushes or President Carter, all these are presidents who like. You see him on TV. You see that big public persona. What do they really like? And as Patrick pointed out, sometimes you get that from a personal life. Maybe that's the same, and maybe it's different. And what if you're writing, Cicero's writing to Caesar? Any of these things you think might be more likely in a personal letter to Caesar? Persuasive, maybe? Yeah? Okay. So the literary stuff, more formal stuff. What about a letter to his wife? Yep.
And I think you have your direct ones here involved.
What?
Maybe
More like
that's
some of the things
fine.
maybe some of you said, maybe more simple, maybe not as repetitious. Again, because it depends on the audience. Yeah.
Like when we text, you might not put like commas or periods or short words, abbreviations.
Right.
Might just very.
Right. Or again, as you made the distinction, grandparents, you might email or write other people you would have a different style of communication. So I think you're going to get a very different picture of Cicero because of this. Now, here's the deal. Here's why this is important. When Cicero died, his friend and his secretary published all of his letters. His friend was a guy named Titus Pomponius Atticus. Usually this goes by the name Atticus. And his secretary, who had been a slave, he set him free, and the guy then just worked for Cicero for a salary, was a guy named Tyro. Tyro and Atticus got together and published all of Cicero's letters. Cicero was in the habit of keeping copies of things that he sent, which is fortunate for us. So now we have copies of things that he sent to Caesar and Pompey, or his wife even. Copies of, he's got kept letters that he received from people. These guys got together and they published several volumes of his personal letters. So now 2,000 years later, we're like, okay, we can read some of this, put it over against some of this, and then when we get to some of this, we're going to revisit this. Let's see if any of that changes. Maybe your opinion of him doesn't change at all. Maybe it remains essentially the same, but just more so. Maybe you have a completely different opinion of him based on some of these other writings. So turn over to page 179, if you will. We're going to look at a first example of the letter. Page 179. Page 179, and it's the letter at the bottom of the page titled "It's a Boy." That's an English editor. Yeah. Who's that to? You know what it's about? You're gonna need help. So there's some stuff you're gonna need for keeping. Yep.
Are we only gonna read letters that Cicero sent? Are we gonna read some that he
I think we're going. No, we're going to get actually one for tonight is one that he received. All right. So he starts off his letter, and again, you haven't prepared it. You just looked at this, but he dates it. Well, that's pretty common. Date a letter. And he dates it, and he says, Lucio Julio Caesare Gaio Marcio Figaro Consulius. What is his dating method there? Yep. When these two guys were close. So basically, dates by the year. These two guys were consuls. We mentioned this before. At this period of history, we dated things by who the consuls were. He says when these two guys were consuls, or by the way, this is unclear in the body of it, he's writing this letter to his friend Atticus. He says when these two guys were consuls, Filiolo me autem scito salva Torrentia. Now that's a complete sentence. He says to his friend Scito, which is over on the side. No, in other words, I want you to know something. In this year, May out, I was blessed. In this year, I was blessed with a filiolo, with a son, comma, ablative absolute, Terentia Salva. Who's Terentia? His wife. With Terentia being Salva.
Hello?
Safe. With Terentia, safe. Complete sentence. What do you notice about it stylistically?
So short.
It's so short. None of this
That's so
nihil,
nice.
all that kind
I
of stuff.
love that.
He's writing his friend, in this year, I had a kid, my wife's doing fine. Period. End of first sentence. It's normal, it's simple, it's primitive, it's what most people would say. Now, interesting thing though. He says, knows that I don't like that side note that says blessed. Auctum comes from the verb augeo, augera, auxi, auctus. We've had it a long time ago.
Oh.
Know that I have been increased with a filiola, with a son. I made greater. That's a nice way to put it. Physically, my family is greater, right? We're one more now. My family is larger. But I have been somehow, I've been enlarged as a person by the birth of a son. But there's a little bit more, and we're gonna get to the wife piece, yeah.
I took that to mean that like he's extending his bloodline, so it means that he has more people to pass on his name.
Oh, I think that's absolutely part of it too. Absolutely. No, we know that the name isn't gonna die with me, and the bloodline goes on. I think that's a great observation. This is his first son. But what is the word for son? Filius. He doesn't say filius. He says filiolus. Did we talk about what happens when you put a vowel and an L in the
it's
middle of a
adopted.
Latin word? Not adopted. I don't know whether we may have talked about it.
I don't.
No, I don't.
I
A
haven't.
vowel and an L in the middle of a word makes it little. It's what we call a diminutive. I've been blessed, or I've been increased with a little baby boy. It's his way of saying baby boy. Latin can actually bring that together into words. You bring a vowel and an L into something, and you okay, bud?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And he didn't get a note out.
Oh, okay. So I've been blessed with this little kid. Yeah.
So it's like in how like in Spanish how it has like the ito or the ita.
There you go. It has also, and I think there's maybe the same. You can help me for sure if that's true in Spanish. It also has that connotation of dear, precious, right? And I don't know what it is, but and maybe some of you have relatives who collect miniatures of things. Some people do. They'll collect miniature replicas of who knows what. There's just something about little versions of stuff that people find cute.
I like mini things. Mini golf,
Anything
like trial size things.
Okay.
At CVS.
Yeah.
I like to buy those.
Like little staplers.
And there we go.
Oh,
Now we're
nice.
off to the races.
The
There you go.
staplers
The little
are nice.
staplers are so cute.
Oh my God.
And everybody kind of has a reaction, right? So the diminutive has that little sense in it as well. I've been increased by a dear son. And then we'll get to the last part of it. Yeah.
I watched this documentary on psychology, and supposedly the reason why humans think that small things are cute is because we're reminded, or we want to protect them and take care of them. Because if you see a baby, your
Right.
instinct is to protect it, take care of it.
That's-
and that's you like small things.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And then he tells his friend, with ablative absolute, with Terentia, safe. Why does he include that detail?
She didn't.
Nils died in
She didn't die. That's a significant issue in the ancient world. Significant in not just the ancient world, but really on up through the ages and even in parts of the world today. Childbirth is a dangerous procedure, if you will. And a lot of women die, certainly in the ancient world. So he says, I want to let you know, got a baby boy, and my wife is doing fine. And then he says, obs te tam diu nihil literarum. Where's the verb in that next sentence? Obs is a preposition and te is a pronoun. I don't see one either. There's no verb. There's not even a verb in the next sentence.
It's not a sentence.
It's not even a real sentence. He says, obs is the same thing as ob. From te,
You.
from you. Tom,
Then.
not tuum is so, and du is so long. From you, so long, nihil, nothing literarum. Nothing of letters. What's he saying?
You have not written.
I haven't heard from you in a long time, buddy. But it's so casual, he doesn't even put in a verb.
I'm
Okay,
disappointed.
this is completely different in style from the speeches. He says, ego, he's really emphasizing the difference here. I, day, from, what's the other meaning of day? Of or about. I, about nays, implied things or affairs. I, about my things or my affairs, on te, to you, or actually it says right there, I about my affairs, rationibus. I have scripsi, I have written to you, antia, before diligenter, diligently. I've been a good friend. I've been writing to you about what's going on in my life, but I haven't heard anything from you, buddy. What's going on? You know? And I don't know if it's too harsh or not. It's just, you know, poking you a little bit, saying, hey, I haven't heard from you for a while. Yeah. Could be just a casual, regular Joe. Right, yeah.
I also think it's like interesting that there's like exclamation mark, because I know that I do that, like in formal writing,
Right.
I would never use an exclamation mark, but when I'm texting people or something, it's like every sentence.
Yeah, you do want to remember, all the punctuation is modern editors.
I know, but like,
But you're right,
it's like
yeah.
the emphasis.
It's certainly that emphasis is there. Now here's something interesting he says. He says, ad hoc tempore, at this time, oh, here's a name you might recognize. Catalina, my competitorem, I am thinking to defendera.
Oh, this is a long time ago.
This was before the whole Catilinarian conspiracy. There was a time when Cicero was thinking of taking Catiline on as a claim. And he's writing to his friend. Had a baby last year, want to let you know, it's great, haven't heard from you for a while. Hey, by the way, there's this guy named Catiline. He's running against me in the election, thought about taking on his case. Interesting.
Well, what was
Obviously,
his case?
Seeing that there was a bribery case. And it's interesting to see this after what you know. Because you never would have thought of him defending Catiline. In fact, he goes on to say, he says, we judicate salvamus. We have these are the people.
Witnesses.
We have the judges that we waluimus, that we
Prefer. Oh, no, one.
that we wanted. Oh, you must think you can win the case. And he says we've even got the goodwill of the accusatores, of the prosecution. So just like attorneys today, defense and prosecution attorneys will sometimes make some deals with each other. And, you know, if you don't press for the maximum, then I'll do this and that. You know, it's just like, I kind of got a good deal going on here. He says, I spero, I hope that if he will be absolutus,
Acquitted.
if he will be acquitted, that he will be a little bit more closely conjunctiorem, connected. Nobis here is really a synonym for me, to me. He was hoping to get Catiline on his side politically by defending him in a lawsuit. Now, we know that didn't end up going down that way, but it's an interesting...
Did he end up defending him?
He ended up not, no. He ended up not.
Why didn't he?
That's fine.
That's why Catiline hated it. He didn't defend me, I'm gonna kill you. I don't recall, Eric, I don't recall why he ended up not. Or if, I'm not even sure if we know. And if we do, like I said, I don't recall. Andrew?
Is this letter addressed to me?
This is addressed to his friend Atticus.
Atticus Finch?
Not Atticus Finch, yeah. A little before his time.
Atticus Finchius.
Lawsuit over.
Like I said, I believe it was some bribery issues. So just a little bit of interesting picture there. All right, tonight, you've got a letter on page 188 titled Come Back to Rome. Now again, that's just the English editors put that on there. But look at footnote 1. Look at footnote 1. Rodney, what's footnote 1 say?
Without.
No?
Footnote.
Oh, no, footnote, one, not side note here.
A very friendly letter from Caesar to Cicero.
This is a letter from Caesar to Cicero. Very interesting. This time you got some questions, all right? So you want to jot down the questions? Here you go, okay? Somebody write your name up there, so you can get the questions. All right. They're good. After this, Lauren, head out on that pass, okay? I don't know, it's whatever I'm making.
You make them up?
Yes.
How much?
Sure.
How much
Always have.
in lines?
Yeah.
Please, give me
You can
Let's
cover
just
them.
have
All right.
one.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, this really could just mean which one's different system. All right. Question number 1. What does the word nostrum in line 1? What does the word nostrum in line 1 imply about Caesar's and Cicero's relationship to Furnius? You can figure out how to spell his name from that first line. What does the word nostrum in line 1 imply about Caesar's and Cicero's relationship to Furnius? Question number 2. What has Caesar not been able to do, and why? What has Caesar not been able to do, and why? Question number 3. How soon does Caesar think he will be able to see Cicero? How soon does Caesar think he will be able to see Cicero? Next question. What 4 things does Caesar hope to get from Cicero? What 4 things does Caesar hope to get from Cicero? And the last question. What does he ask Cicero to forgive? What does he ask Cicero to forgive? Lauren, as soon as you're done, you're out there on your pass. Elliot, thank you. Okay.